The first rule Ruby Bennett broke in Luca Santoro's house was the one posted directly above the stove. Staff may not use main kitchen after 6:00 p.m. The sign was printed on thick cream paper, framed in black, and mounted at eye level, as though whoever had written it expected insubordination from people carrying saucepans. Ruby had been employed for 3 hours. She had already been given a 27-page household manual, a keycard that opened only the east wing, a list of emergency contacts sorted by threat level, and a schedule for Sofia Santoro precise enough to include the number of minutes allocated to brushing her teeth. Ruby had nodded through all of it because she needed the job, because the agency had called it temporary but unusually well paid, and because 6-year-old Sofia had spent most of the afternoon watching her from behind a book without speaking. Then, at 6:23, Sofia had looked up and said, "My mama used to make lemon pasta when it rained." Outside, rain pressed against the tall kitchen windows. Ruby looked at the rule, then at Sofia. "Did she?" The little girl nodded. "With too much cheese. Too much cheese is usually the correct amount." Sofia's mouth almost moved. It was the closest thing to a smile Ruby had seen since arriving. The staff kitchen downstairs could have produced dinner, but Sofia had refused everything sent up. Ruby had tried soup, roasted chicken, buttered bread, and finally, negotiation. Nothing worked. The lemon pasta did. That was how Ruby found herself tying an apron around her curvy waist in a kitchen larger than her first apartment, telling herself that a household rule was probably less important than a child eating one proper meal. She located pasta, cream, lemons, parmesan, and a skillet heavy enough to qualify as defensive equipment. "Your uncle is going to fire me," she told Sofia. "Probably," Sofia said, comforting. Ruby was good with children and mediocre with expensive stoves. The Santoro range had 6 burners, 3 ovens, digital controls, and a brass ignition system designed by someone who had never met an ordinary person. She got water boiling. She zested the lemon. She melted butter. Sofia sat on the island, swinging her feet, until Ruby remembered the rule about children in the main kitchen and made her move to a stool near the doorway. "We are already committing one crime," Ruby said. "No need to add accomplice liability." Sofia blinked. "What's that?" "Something your uncle probably understands better than I do." Ruby added cream to the skillet. The flame flared. She turned the dial the wrong direction. The butter caught. Fire climbed the side of the pan. Ruby reacted before fear could become useful. "Back." Sofia moved instantly. Ruby reached for the lid, missed it, grabbed a towel, stopped herself before throwing fabric onto flame, and found the metal cover on the prep counter. The fire surged higher. Then the kitchen door opened hard enough to strike the wall. Luca Santoro entered like the house had summoned him. Ruby had met him only once that afternoon, in the library, where he had explained the rules in a voice so calm that breaking them had seemed less like misconduct and more like an experiment in survival. He was 37, tall, dark-haired, dressed in a charcoal shirt, with the sleeves rolled once at the forearms. Nothing about him looked hurried except his eyes. They went first to Sofia, then to the flames, then to Ruby. "Move." He crossed the kitchen, killed the burner, covered the skillet with the lid, and reached for the fire blanket mounted beside the pantry. The flames died beneath it in seconds. Smoke spread across the ceiling. Ruby coughed. Sofia stood frozen in the doorway. Luca turned to his niece. "Are you hurt?" Sofia shook her head. "Did you breathe smoke?" Another shake. Only then did Luca look at Ruby. The silence was remarkable. Ruby glanced at the blackened skillet. "In my defense, no, that seems premature. You set fire to my kitchen. Technically, the butter did. His expression did not change. Ruby looked towards Sofia for support. The little girl studied the floor. Coward. Luca removed the fire blanket and checked the stove. Why was she in here? She wasn't. She was at the doorway. Why were you in here? Ruby pointed toward the framed rule. I understand this is going to sound weak. You read it. Yes. And ignored it. Yes. Why? Ruby looked at Sofia. Luca followed her gaze. Sofia spoke before Ruby could. I wanted Mama's pasta. Something changed in Luca's face. It vanished almost immediately. Ruby noticed anyway. She hadn't eaten. Ruby said, I tried everything else. The staff kitchen exists. She didn't want staff pasta. She wanted her mother's. Luca's jaw tightened. You do not decide which rules matter. Ruby's instinct was to apologize quickly, smile, absorb the criticism, and make herself easier to keep. She had done that in wealthy houses before. Nannies who were soft, agreeable, and invisible lasted longer. Women who looked like Ruby, full hips, broad curves, bright clothes, laughter that arrived too easily, were already judged as too much before they opened their mouths. She had learned to compensate by being useful. But Sofia was still standing there, so Ruby did not make herself smaller. I decide whether a 6-year-old eats. Luca stared at her. The kitchen became very quiet. Then Enzo Marcelli arrived. Ruby had met him during orientation. Head of household operations and security. Mid-50s. Silver at the temples. Posture. Military. He looked from the burned skillet to Ruby and sighed, as if a prediction had matured exactly on schedule. Mr. Santoro. Luca did not look at him. Why didn't the alarm sound? Enzo paused. Ruby turned toward the ceiling. There it was. The smoke detector above the main preparation area. Silent. Not blinking. Not doing anything remotely useful. Ruby looked at Luca. That's what I was about to ask. Enzo stepped beneath the unit. Likely heat damage. The fire lasted maybe 30 seconds. Ruby said. Enzo glanced at her. You are not an electrician. No, but I've burned enough toast to understand smoke detectors. Luca looked up at the unit. Tested. Enzo took out his phone and called someone from maintenance. Ruby crossed to Sofia and crouched. Hey. Still okay, Sofia nodded. Scared. A small shrug. Ruby held out her hand. After a moment, Sofia took it. Luca watched. That was the second thing Ruby noticed about him that evening. The first had been fear when he saw Sofia near the fire. The second was that he seemed to understand affection best when watching someone else perform it. Maintenance arrived within 4 minutes. Ruby found that suspiciously fast. But in Luca Santoro's house, 4 minutes apparently counted as leisurely. A technician climbed a stepladder, removed the detector housing, and frowned. Powers disconnected. Enzo looked up sharply. Disconnected how? The technician held down 2 wires. Manual release. Somebody opened the unit. Luca's face emptied of expression. Ruby had already learned that this was worse than visible anger. When he asked, Can't tell from this, but it didn't fail because of the fire. Ruby folded her arms. So, technically, my kitchen fire performed a safety audit. Luca looked at her. She smiled carefully. Too soon. Yes. Enzo turned toward her. This does not change the fact that you violated the household rules. Ruby opened her mouth. Luca spoke first. No, it doesn't. Enzo gave a small nod. Ruby felt the familiar drop in her stomach. There it was. Job over. She had lasted 3 hours and 41 minutes. The agency would probably never place her in another high-profile household. She could already imagine the summary ignored protocol. Endangered child. Caused fire. Nobody would include lemon pasta. Luca continued. But the alarm should have worked. Enzo's expression changed by a fraction. Ruby noticed. So we have two problems. Luca said, one of them is Miss Bennett. Ruby. His eyes shifted to her. If you're firing me, use the name. Sofia tightened her hand around Ruby's fingers. Luca saw that too. He looked at his niece. Then, back at Ruby. I haven't decided. Ruby blinked. Enzo did not like that answer. Mr. Santoro, with respect, the agency can send a replacement tomorrow. Sofia's grip tightened again. Luca looked at her. You want Ruby to stay? Sofia nodded once. No hesitation. The room changed. Luca exhaled slowly. Temporary. Ruby raised an eyebrow. I was already temporary. More temporary. That seems administratively difficult. One corner of his mouth almost moved. Enzo did not smile. Luca turned to him. Full inspection. Kitchen alarms. Cameras. Gas system. All access panels. Tonight. Of course. And pull the last 30 days of maintenance logs. Enzo nodded. I'll handle it. Ruby watched him leave. Sofia whispered. He doesn't like you. Ruby looks down. Your uncle? No. Mr. Enzo. That is less alarming. Sofia leaned closer. He says people who break rules make the house unsafe. Ruby glanced toward Luca. He had heard. His expression gave nothing away. Later, after Sofia finally ate a replacement dinner from the staff kitchen and allowed Ruby to read 2 chapters of a book about a dragon who disliked vegetables, Luca appeared in the doorway of the nursery. It was 8:47. Ruby knew because the household manual included a rule stating that all childcare staff must leave the private family corridor by 9. Sofia was already asleep. One hand curled beneath her cheek. Ruby closed the book. Am I dismissed? Luca leaned against the doorframe. From the job or the room? Optimistic question. He looked at Sofia. She talked to you. A little. She doesn't do that with new people. Ruby softened. Maybe she likes my criminal attitude toward pasta. His gaze returned to her. You joke when you're uncomfortable. Ruby's smile faded. That is invasive. It was observable. You observe too much. It keeps people alive. There it was again. Rules as armor. Ruby stood and placed the book on the nightstand. For what it's worth, I am sorry about the fire. Luca nodded once. But I'm not sorry. I tried to get her to eat. His eyes held hers. I know. The answer surprised her. Ruby walked toward the door. When she passed him, Luca said, the detector had been disabled before today. She stopped. So someone did it deliberately. We don't know that yet. You have the face. What face? The one where you already know and are waiting for evidence to catch up. His gaze sharpened. Ruby smiled faintly. Observable. For the first time. Luca almost looked amused. Then the hallway camera above them clicked. Ruby looked up. The small indicator light went dark. Then back on. She frowned. Does that happen often? Luca looked at the camera. No. From the bed. Sofia's sleepy voice drifted through the room. It does. Both adults turned. Sofia's eyes remained closed. Ruby stepped closer. What does... Sweetheart. The cameras sleep. Luca went completely still. Ruby looked at him. How often, Sofia murmured. Already half asleep again. Sometimes at night. The room felt colder. Luca walked into the hallway and looked directly at the camera. Its indicator light glowed steadily now. Ruby joined him. You still think the biggest problem in this house is me? Luca looked at her. No. The answer came without hesitation. Somewhere downstairs. Doors opened, and footsteps moved quickly as Enzo began the inspection. Ruby looked back at Sofia. The fire had been her mistake. The silence of the alarm had not. And for the first time since entering Luca Santoro's perfectly controlled house, Ruby wondered how many rules existed because danger was outside the walls, and how many existed because somebody inside already knew where the walls were weakest. At 8:58 the next morning, Ruby discovered that Luca Santoro had rules for surviving breakfast. Sofia's orange juice had to be poured before she entered the dining room. Newspapers were folded with the business section on top. Staff spoke only when addressed, unless there was an emergency. Phones were prohibited at the table. Ruby learned the last one when she sat beside Sofia, placed her phone near her coffee, and Luca looked at it as though she had set down a grenade. Rule 12, he said. Ruby picked up the phone. Good morning to you too. Good morning. Sea warmer already. Across the table, Sofia hid a smile behind her glass. Luca noticed. His gaze lingered on his niece for a second longer than necessary before returning to Ruby. The kitchen inspection is ongoing, and the detector was manually disconnected. 2 cameras in the east corridor recorded intermittent outages over the last 6 weeks. Ruby stopped teasing. So Sofia was right. Yes. Does that happen often around here? Children being right. You admitting it. Sofia giggled. Luca looked at her again, and Ruby saw the answer he did not say. Not often enough. Enzo entered carrying a tablet. The preliminary report. He placed it beside Luca, then looked at Ruby's coffee, as though even caffeine had become less disciplined since her arrival. The detector appears to have been disconnected during routine maintenance. We are reviewing which technician handled the unit. Luca scrolled through the report. And the cameras, firmware, instability. Ruby leaned back. 2 unrelated failures. Enzo's eyes shifted to her. Equipment fails. Conveniently. Miss Bennett, household security is not within your responsibilities. Yesterday, household security failed above my head while I was holding a flaming skillet. It feels adjacent. Luca's mouth almost moved. Enzo saw it. That seemed to bother him more than Ruby's comment. The systems will be corrected, he said. Good, Luca replied. And until I know why they failed. No one assumes they were unrelated. Enzo paused. Of course. After breakfast, Ruby took Sofia to the conservatory for schoolwork. The room had glass walls overlooking rain-dark gardens and enough expensive plants to make Ruby nervous about crayons. Sofia finished mathematics quickly and then spent 20 minutes drawing a purple dragon wearing Luca's expression. He looks angry, Ruby said. He is thinking. Ah, easy mistake. Sofia added eyebrows. Uncle Luca thinks all the time. That sounds exhausting. He doesn't sleep much. Ruby looked at her. How do you know his light is on? At night, Sofia nodded. Sometimes when the cameras sleep. Ruby's pencil stopped. Which cameras? She asked casually. Sofia pointed toward the corridor outside. Those. And upstairs. Do you tell your uncle? He says I shouldn't worry about security. That sounds like him. Sofia colored the dragon's tie black. Mr. Enzo says rules keep bad things outside. Ruby looked through the glass toward the stone wall surrounding the property. And what do you think? Sofia considered it with the seriousness only children could give a question, and adults had stopped asking. I think bad things know doors. Ruby did not laugh. At noon. The household schedule, said Sofia was supposed to eat lunch in the formal breakfast room with a rotating staff member. Ruby changed it. Not dramatically. She moved 2 plates to the small staff kitchen, made grilled cheese, cut Sofia's sandwich diagonally because civilization depended on standards, and sat with her at the counter. Sofia ate everything. Halfway through, Luca appeared in the doorway. Ruby looked at the clock. Before you say anything, I checked. There is no rule against grilled cheese. There is a rule about schedule changes. Of course there is. Sofia froze with her sandwich halfway to her mouth. Luca noticed. Ruby noticed him noticing. He looked at the empty plate. Then at his niece. "Did you eat the soup they sent upstairs yesterday?" "No." "The chicken?" "No." "The pasta?" Sofia looked at Ruby. "The second pasta," Ruby clarified. "The non-flammable one." Sofia nodded. Luca entered the kitchen. Ruby waited for the lecture. Instead, he pulled out the chair opposite Sofia and sat. "Ruby stert," what he asked. "I'm checking the manual mentally. For rules against mafia bosses eating grilled cheese in staff kitchens." Sofia's eyes widened. Luca's gaze became very still. "Who told you what I am?" Ruby realized too late that perhaps the word had not appeared in the official employment packet. "Nobody." "Then why did you say it?" "Because your agency background check was terrifying. Half the staff looks trained to evacuate a head of state. And yesterday, a man with a shoulder holster asked me whether I had enemies before showing me where Sofia keeps her crayons. Sofia volunteered. Marco has 2 guns. Sofia. Luca said. What he does. Ruby pointed at her. Thank you. Supporting witness. Luca rubbed the bridge of his nose. Do not discuss security equipment with Sofia. Are Marco's guns, security equipment, Ruby. She smiled. Fine. He looked at the sandwich ingredients. Is there another one? Ruby blinked. Sofia grinned. 5 minutes later, Luca Santoro was eating grilled cheese cut diagonally because Ruby refused to serve it any other way. He took one bite and looked at her. Too much butter. That is not a real sentence. It is objectively too much. Sofia, Ruby asked. Sofia chewed thoughtfully. It needs more. Luca looked betrayed. Ruby laughed so loudly that one of the guards outside glanced through the doorway. The moment lasted perhaps 3 minutes. Then Enzo appeared. He stopped when he saw Luca at the counter. Sir, your 1 o'clock has arrived. Luca checked the clock. They're early. Yes. His gaze moved to Ruby and Sofia. Then back to Luca. I can have your lunch brought to the study. Luca looked at the remaining half sandwich. No. Reschedule them 10 minutes. Enzo's expression barely changed. Ruby felt it anyway. Luca had broken his own schedule. For grilled cheese. Sofia looked delighted. Enzo left. Ruby leaned toward Luca. Should I be worried? About what? I think we just caused an institutional crisis. Eat your sandwich. That sounded like a rule. It was a request. Progress. That afternoon, Ruby discovered a new entry in Sofia's printed schedule. Driver. Change. 3:30 p.m. Music lesson. Vehicle 4. She frowned because the original schedule she had received listed no outing. Sofia's music teacher normally came to the house. Ruby found Enzo near the central staircase. Did the piano lesson move? He looked at the paper. Apparently. Apparently I don't personally manage every adjustment. Who does? The scheduling office. Can I call them? His gaze sharpened. Why? Because I'm the nanny taking her. You will not be taking her. A driver will. Ruby folded the schedule. Then I definitely want to know where. Enzo's expression cooled. Miss Bennett, you are developing a habit of questioning procedures you do not understand. And this house is developing a habit of having procedures nobody can explain. Before he could answer, Luca's voice came from behind her. What changed? Enzo turned. A routine transportation adjustment. Luca held out his hand. Ruby gave him the paper. He read it once. Sofia has no external lesson today. Enzo frowned. Then scheduling made an error. Luca took out his phone. There are no errors involving her transportation. The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop. Within minutes, 2 security staff arrived. The scheduling system showed that the change had been entered at 1114 that morning, using a valid household administrator credential. The account belonged to a coordinator who was currently on vacation in Florida. Ruby looked at Enzo. Enzo looked at the security screen. Luca looked at everyone. Cancel all non-essential transport. He said, reset scheduling credentials. Audit every change for 90 days. Ruby opened her mouth. Luca saw it. What? You're about to add 7 new rules, aren't you? His eyes narrowed. Probably. That doesn't answer who changed the schedule. It reduces exposure until we know. Fair. He seemed surprised. She agreed. Ruby continued. But if Sofia suddenly can't leave the house because somebody else compromised your system, the person who did it gets to change her life. Luca's face hardened. Her safety comes first. Yes, safety, not imprisonment, Enzo said. This is precisely why household staff should follow established protocol rather than debate it. Ruby turned. Established protocol just tried to put her in a car she wasn't supposed to be in. Silence. Luca looked at Enzo. Ruby is right. It was the first time he had said her name in front of staff. Enzo noticed that too. We tighten verification. Luca continued. We do not confine Sofia. Enzo nodded. But his jaw had become rigid. Understood. That evening, the house seemed quieter. More guards occupied the halls. Technicians opened control panels and checked cameras. Ruby tried to keep Sofia away from the tension by building a blanket fort in the nursery and declaring it sovereign territory. At 8:40, Sofia fell asleep inside it. Ruby should have left. Rule 7. Childcare staff out of the private corridor by 9:00 p.m. At opt cinzech, she cinch. Ruby crawled from the fort, found her shoes, and reached the doorway. Sofia made a small sound behind her. Ruby turned. The child was sitting upright, eyes wide. What happened? Sofia did not answer. Ruby returned and sat beside her. Bad dream. Anot, want to tell me? Another shake. That's okay. Ruby tucked the blanket around her. Sofia whispered. Mama was in the kitchen. Ruby's chest tightened. What was she doing? Cooking. Lemon pasta. Sofia nodded. Was it a scary dream? She went away again. Ruby did not have a clever answer for grief, so she stayed. At nowa shaptes prezece. Luca appeared in the doorway. Ruby looked at the clock, then at him. I know. His gaze moved to Sofia, who had fallen asleep against Ruby's side. Rule 7, he said quietly. I can read. You're still here. She had a nightmare. Luca entered the room. Ruby expected him to lift Sofia and carry her to bed. Instead, he crouched beside them. What dream? Ruby hesitated. It was Sofia's story, not hers. Luca understood the hesitation. He looked at his niece. Sofia. The girl's eyes opened slightly. Mama. Luca's face changed. Ruby had seen the shift after the fire. But this was deeper. Grief stripped something cold away from him. He sat on the floor. Not the chair. Not the edge of the bed. The floor. Beside Ruby and the blanket fort. Sofia reached for his hand. Luca gave it immediately. For several minutes. Nobody spoke. Ruby became painfully aware of how close he was. His shoulder nearly touched hers. Without the suit jackets, guards, rules, and enormous rooms between them. Luca looked less like the man whose name made employees straighten and more like an exhausted uncle trying to understand how to carry a child's grief when his own remained unfinished. She used to burn the garlic, he said eventually. Ruby looked at him. My sister, Elena, every time. Sofia's eyes remained closed. Mama said it was toasted. It was burned. Ruby whispered. I respect her commitment to the lie. Luca looked at her. Then, Impossibly. He laughed. Quietly. Once. Sofia smiled without opening her eyes. The sound did something dangerous to Ruby's chest. At, no, patruzec, shitrei. Luca carried Sofia to bed. Ruby gathered the blankets. When they stepped into the hallway, the camera above the nursery clicked off. Both of them saw it. The indicator returned 3 seconds later. Luca immediately checked his phone. No outage alert. Ruby looked at the camera. So the system doesn't know it went down, or someone is suppressing the alert. Footsteps approached. Enzo appeared at the end of the corridor. Everything all right? Luca's eyes stayed on the camera. Why are you upstairs? Enzo stopped. Security inspection. At 9:43, we are checking intermittent faults. Ruby looked at his hands. A brass key hung from one finger. It was larger than the electronic staff cards. Old-fashioned, she said. Enzo followed her gaze. Master mechanical override. Does it open everything emergency access only? Luca looked at the key. Why do you have it? Enzo's expression remained composed. I always carry it during system maintenance. Luca said nothing. Ruby remembered something from orientation. Enzo had told her that mechanical master keys were stored in the downstairs security safe and checked out only during emergencies. She looked at him. He looked back. Neither spoke. After Enzo left, Luca waited until his footsteps disappeared down the staircase. Then he turned to Ruby. What? She lowered her voice. Yesterday he told me, master keys stay in the security safe. Luca went still. Are you sure? Yes. When orientation, I asked what happens if my card fails while I'm with Sofia. His eyes moved toward the staircase. Ruby folded her arms. You have the face again. This is not funny. I know. He looked back at the nursery. Go home. Ruby bristled automatically. Luca caught it. He exhaled. Please go home. I need to investigate this. And you have been here since 8. The please stopped her. Okay. She took 2 steps. Ruby. She turned. Luca stood beneath the camera, hands in his pockets. Thank you for staying with her. Ruby looked at the clock. After 9, his gaze softened by a fraction. Especially after 9. She smiled. Careful, Mr. Santoro. You're encouraging rule-breaking. Do not become ambitious. Ruby walked toward the stairs. Behind her, Luca remained outside Sofia's room. At the landing, she glanced back. Enzo's master key had bothered him. The altered car schedule had frightened him. The sleeping cameras had made him suspicious. But what Ruby remembered most was Luca sitting on the floor inside a blanket fort, holding Sofia's hand while talking about burned garlic. The coldest man she had ever met had broken his schedule for grilled cheese and his own 9 o'clock rule for a grieving child. Ruby suspected the house was becoming less orderly because of her. She was beginning to suspect Luca Santoro did not entirely hate that. Downstairs, as she reached the foyer, one of the security monitors flickered. For less than a second, the camera grid disappeared. When it returned, Ruby noticed something strange. The timestamp had jumped forward 4 minutes. She stopped. The guard at the desk was looking at another screen. Ruby leaned closer. 4 missing minutes. Not a sleeping camera this time. An entire house that had briefly forgotten what happened inside it. And somewhere above her, a man who trusted rules more than people was beginning to discover that someone had learned how to use his rules against him. Ruby arrived at the Santoro house the next morning, with 4 minutes missing from the security system and exactly 0 intention of pretending she had not seen them. She found Luca in the breakfast room before Sofia came downstairs. He was already dressed for work. Black suit, white shirt, no tie, coffee untouched beside an open tablet. The foyer monitors lost 4 minutes last night, Ruby said instead of good morning. Luca looked up. I know. You know because I told the guard. I know because the guard told me after you told him. Excellent. Communication exists. His expression remained flat. The central recorder was placed into maintenance bypass from 9. 51, 2, 9, 5, 5. By whom? The credential belongs to Enzo. Ruby stopped. Luca continued before she could react. He says he initiated a diagnostic after the upstairs camera fault. Did he tell anyone before doing it? No. Does protocol require him to? Yes. Ruby pulled out the chair opposite him. And I'm investigating. She studied him. You don't like where this is going. I don't like assumptions. Neither do I. I like patterns. Luca's gaze sharpened. Patterns become accusations very quickly. Only when somebody keeps drawing the same shape. Sofia entered wearing one sock, carrying the other, and announced that breakfast was structurally unfair because adults could drink coffee, but children could not. The conversation ended. Ruby helped her negotiate hot chocolate as a compromise, and for 20 minutes, Luca became simply Uncle Luca again, correcting Sofia's multiplication while pretending not to notice when Ruby slipped an extra marshmallow into her cup. At 9, a security officer named Marco arrived to escort them to Sofia's school orientation. Luca had allowed the outing after introducing a new verification procedure. Ruby would receive the vehicle number and driver photograph directly from him. The driver would give a rotating code word before Sofia approached the car. No schedule change could be made by a single administrator. Ruby had called it security without imprisonment. Luca had called it obvious. She had chosen not to remind him whose argument it had been. The orientation ended shortly after noon. Ruby and Sofia emerged through the side entrance with 3 other families. A black SUV waited at the curb. Vehicle dos. Correct license plate. The driver stepped out. Ruby had seen his photograph that morning. Ms. Bennett? Yes. Mr. Santoro sent me. We need to move. There's a traffic issue on the main route. Ruby kept one hand on Sofia's shoulder. Code word. The driver hesitated. Only half a second. Orchid. Ruby's stomach dropped. The code word was Atlas. She smiled. Right. Sofia. I left your purple folder inside. I don't have a purple folder. You do now. The driver stepped closer. Ma'am. Mr. Santoro said. Ruby moved Sofia behind her. Don't. His expression changed. Ruby's phone was already in her hand. She pressed Luca's emergency contact. The driver reached toward his jacket. Then Marco came around the corner from the parking lot. Everything happened at once. Marco shouted. The driver jumped back into the SUV. Tires screamed against the curb. Ruby pulled Sofia against the brick wall while the vehicle shot into traffic. Marco drew his weapon but did not fire. Sofia was shaking. Ruby crouched in front of her. Look at me. The child did. You did nothing wrong. Was that our car? No. It looked like our car. I know. Sofia's lower lip trembled. Ruby held out both hands. Can I hug you? Sofia fell into her. Luca arrived 11 minutes later. Ruby had never seen anyone enter a space with that much controlled violence. 2 cars stopped at the curb. Luca stepped out before the second had fully parked. He went directly to Sofia. Crouched. Checked her face. Arms. Shoulders. Then looked at Ruby. What happened, she told him. Every detail. Vehicle number. Plate. Driver photograph. Wrong code word. Escape. Direction. Luca stood. Marco. We're tracing the plate. It's cloned. The driver, not ours. The photograph in the morning verification packet was replaced. Luca's eyes became cold. Ruby understood immediately. Someone had not merely altered a schedule. Someone had learned the new rule overnight and built a trap around it. Back at the house, Luca transformed fear into policy. Ruby watched it happen from the library while security staff moved in and out. All external outings for Sofia were suspended. No staff member could approach her without two-person verification. Ruby's access card was restricted to the East family wing. Armed security would remain outside the nursery. Every delivery would be screened off property. Ruby listened until Luca said, "Sofia does not leave this house until I know who did this." Then she stood. No. The room went silent. Enzo, standing near the fireplace, looked almost offended by the existence of the word. Luca turned slowly. "Excuse me, you heard me. My niece was nearly taken. I was there. Then you should understand." "I understand you're terrified," Enzo said. Miss Bennett. Ruby held up a hand without looking at him. "Not now." Enzo's face hardened. Luca's voice dropped. "Do not speak to him that way in my house." Ruby looked at Luca. "Then don't let him interrupt a conversation about the child I'm responsible for." The silence became dangerous. Luca dismissed the room. Everyone left, except Ruby. Enzo was last. Before closing the door, he gave Ruby a look that contained no ambiguity whatsoever. Luca waited until they were alone. "You have 30 seconds to explain why keeping Sofia inside is unreasonable." "Because the problem is inside." His expression changed. Ruby continued. "The fake driver had the exact vehicle information and the photograph from the verification packet you created this morning. The camera bypass used Enzo's credential. Yesterday, someone changed Sofia's transport schedule from an administrator account. The smoke detector was manually disconnected. You keep responding by adding rules around Sofia. But whoever is doing this already has access to the rules. That does not mean I let her walk outside while we investigate. No. It means you secure the leak instead of teaching a 6-year-old that the world ends at your gate. You think this is about teaching. I think everything in this house teaches her something." Luca stared at her. Ruby's anger softened. She was shaking. "Luca, so was I." The words came so quietly that she almost missed them. He looked away. That was the first time he had admitted fear without disguising it as procedure. Ruby sat again. "I know." "No, you don't." "Then tell me." His laugh held no humor. "That is not how this works. Maybe that's the problem." Luca walked to the window. "My sister died because I believed a security assessment that said a route was safe." Ruby said nothing. Eleanor wanted to take Sofia to a birthday party. There had been threats that week. I almost cancelled it. Enzo reviewed the route. My people reviewed it. Everything was cleared. Ruby's chest tightened. "What happened?" "A drunk driver crossed the median." She blinked. "Not an attack. Not mafia retaliation. Un accident." Luca looked out at the grounds. All the security in the world. Every protocol. Every man I paid to predict danger. None of it mattered. Ruby understood then. The rules had never truly been about controlling enemies. They were Luca's argument with randomness. If I had kept them home. No. He turned. Ruby stood. "No. You do not get to turn an accident into evidence that you should control every future choice." His face closed. "You asked me to tell you, and I'm listening." It doesn't sound like it. Listening is not the same as agreeing. The line hit him. Ruby realized she had used his own logic. Neither spoke for a moment. Then, Luca said, "Sofia stays home today. Today is reasonable. Tomorrow we reassess based on evidence." His eyebrows lifted. "Was that collaborative enough for you?" Ruby smiled faintly. Painfully. Something eased. Not the danger. Something between them. That afternoon Sofia refused to nap, so Ruby took her to the indoor pool instead. Luca had approved it after inspecting the room himself, which Ruby considered progress only because he had not stationed a tactical team beside the inflatable dolphin. Sofia splashed for 40 minutes and finally started laughing again. While drying her hair, Ruby asked. Did you recognize the man at school? No. Have you ever seen a car that looked like that one? Sofia thought. Mr. Enzo has lots of cars. Ruby kept her expression neutral. So does your uncle. Uncle Luca's are shinier. Important distinction. Sofia smiled. Then she said, Mr. Enzo says Uncle Luca needs to be scared sometimes. Ruby's hand stopped in Sofia's hair. What he said scared people remember rules. When did he say that? Sofia shrugged. Before you came. Was he talking to you? No. Mr. Enzo was talking to another man. Where? By the garage. Ruby's pulse changed. What else did he say? I don't know. Ruby wanted to ask more. She stopped herself. Sofia was 6. This was not an interrogation. Okay, Ruby said lightly. Thanks for telling me. But she did not tell Luca. Not immediately. That decision would matter later. At the time, Ruby told herself she needed context. Children repeated fragments. Enzo could have been discussing Luca's enemies, security training, anything. Accusing the man who had served Luca's family for decades, based on one overheard sentence from a 6-year-old, felt reckless. And Ruby had spent the morning accusing Luca of turning fear into certainty. She refused to do the same. At 6, Sofia ate dinner in the small kitchen again. Luca joined them 10 minutes late. Nobody commented on the fact that this had become a routine after only 2 days. Ruby had made tomato soup. Luca looked into the bowl. No fire I considered flambé. Sofia laughed. Luca sat. Halfway through dinner, Ruby noticed a scrape across his knuckles. What happened? Nothing. That is clearly something. Work. What kind of work causes that? The kind not listed in your employment contract. Ruby looked at his hand, then at his face. Did you hit somebody? Sofia looked up immediately. Luca gave Ruby a look. Ruby mouthed. Sorry. Sofia asked. Did you? No. Ruby raised an eyebrow. Luca added. Not today. Sofia accepted this with disturbing ease and returned to soup. Ruby stared at him. What? Your household is educational in unexpected ways. After dinner, Luca walked Ruby toward the east corridor. At the junction leading to his private office, he stopped. Come with me. Ruby looked at the sign beside the corridor. Private family and security area. Staff access prohibited without authorization. She pointed. Rule. I'm authorizing you. That sounds suspiciously convenient. Ruby. She followed. His office was nothing like the rest of the house. No decorative perfection. No formal symmetry. Books stacked on a side table. 3 coffee cups. A jacket over the back of a chair. Photographs on a shelf. Ruby stopped at one. Luca and a younger woman stood beside a lake, both laughing. The woman held a toddler. Sofia. Elena, yes. Ruby looked at him. You smiled. I still do. I have seen evidence twice. 3 times. You're counting. Apparently. The intimacy of the exchange landed before either of them could pretend it had not. Luca moved to his desk and opened a security report. The fake vehicle was registered using a Shell rental account. Whoever prepared it knew the make, plate, sequence, and driver packet within hours. Ruby's humor disappeared. Internal access. Yes. Enzo Luca's expression hardened. I said, internal access. That wasn't my question. No. Ruby waited. Luca looked at the report. I have known Enzo since I was 11. There it was. Not evidence. History. He worked for your father. Yes. And Elena, he protected both of us. Ruby thought about the sentence Sofia had repeated. Scared people remember rules. She almost told him. Then, Luca said, You were right this morning. Ruby blinked. Can I record that? No. Shame. I responded to fear by trying to lock Sofia inside. Yes. I still believe temporary restrictions are necessary. So do I. But you were right, that restrictions are not an investigation. Ruby studied him. That admission looks painful. It is. She smiled. Luca did not. Ruby, if you see anything unusual, no matter how small, you tell me. The sentence hit her with uncomfortable precision. She thought of Sofia at the pool. Mr. Enzo says Uncle Luca needs to be scared sometimes. Ruby hesitated. Luca noticed. What? She should have said it. Instead, she said, nothing. His eyes remained on her for a second too long. Ruby hated the lie immediately. Before he could question it, a knock sounded. Marco entered. We found something. He placed a clear evidence bag on Luca's desk. Inside was a brass master key. Ruby recognized it. The same kind Enzo had carried the night before. Where Luca asked. Inside the East Garage security cabinet, behind the scheduling terminal. Who's no checkout tag? Luca looked at Ruby. She looked at the key. Marco continued. There's more. The cabinet camera was offline during the 4-minute maintenance bypass. Luca's expression went cold. Who accessed the garage? We're pulling logs. Ruby asked. Can that key open the kitchen service panels? Marco nodded. Mechanical overrides. Alarm housings. Utility cabinets. Almost everything. The smoke detector. The cameras. The scheduling terminal. One key. One access window. Luca stood. Find Enzo. Marco left. Ruby's heart beat harder. This was the moment to tell Luca what Sofia had said. She opened her mouth. Then the office door opened again. Enzo walked in. You wanted me. His gaze moved to the evidence bag. For the first time since Ruby had met him. Enzo looked genuinely surprised. Only for a fraction of a second. Then, it was gone. Luca picked up the bag. Explain this. Enzo approached. A master override. I know what it is. Where was it found? East Garage. Enzo frowned. Then someone removed it from security storage. You carried one upstairs last night. Yes. Checked out for maintenance. Where is it now? In the safe. Luca looked at Marco, who had returned to the doorway. Check. Marco spoke into his radio. They waited. Ruby watched Enzo. He did not look nervous. That bothered her. A voice answered through Marco's earpiece. He looked at Luca. The issued master is in the safe. 2 keys. Enzo looked at Ruby. There appears to be a duplicate. His tone was calm. Too calm. Luca said. Who can duplicate the manufacturer? Head of security. Property owner. Ruby looked at Luca. Enzo continued. And anyone who had access to one long enough to copy it. His eyes moved to Ruby. The implication was subtle, but it was there. Ruby's stomach tightened. Luca noticed. Say what you mean. Enzo. Enzo folded his hands. I mean, we should stop assuming the threat predates recent changes in the household. Silence. Ruby stared at him. There it was. Not an accusation. A direction. Toward her. Luca's face became unreadable. Ruby waited for him to dismiss it. He did not. Not immediately. That hesitation hurt more than she expected. Enzo continued. The detector failed the day Miss Bennett arrived. The camera incidents became relevant because she noticed them. The transportation breach followed new procedures discussed in her presence. Ruby laughed once. You think I staged a fake kidnapping because I burned butter? I think coincidence deserves scrutiny. Ruby looked at Luca. Do you? His eyes held hers. I scrutinize everyone. Wrong answer. Maybe professionally correct. Personally, devastating. Ruby stepped back. Good to know. Ruby. No. You asked me to tell you anything unusual. But apparently being the person who notices unusual things makes me suspicious. That is not what I said. It's what he said. And you're standing there considering it. Luca's jaw tightened. I have to. Because rules. Because Sofia. That stopped her. Of course. Sofia. Ruby could not ask him to ignore a possibility when a child's safety was involved. But she could hate that the possibility was her. She turned toward the door. Luca said, "Where are you going?" "Home." "It's not 9. Ruby looked back. "Consider me ahead of schedule." She left. Luca did not stop her. That was probably the right thing. It still hurt. At home, Ruby dropped her bag beside the sofa and sat in the dark without turning on a light. She replayed the day until every decision became evidence against itself. The fake driver, the master key, Enzo's accusation, Luca's hesitation. Then Sofia's words returned. "Mr. Enzo says Uncle Luca needs to be scared sometimes." Ruby closed her eyes. She should have told him, not because it proved Enzo was guilty, because Luca had asked for every small thing, and Ruby had decided for him which information mattered. Exactly the kind of thing she accused him of doing to everyone else. Her phone buzzed. A message from Luca. I should not have let Enzo turn an investigation into an accusation without evidence. Ruby read it twice. A second message appeared. But I will not lie to you until I know who is doing this. I have to consider everyone with access. She typed, including me. His reply came immediately. Including me. Ruby staret. Then another message. I broke the rule about staff in my office tonight. Despite herself, she smiled. She typed, alert the authorities. 3 dots. I may know some. Ruby laughed into the dark. The tension eased by 1 degree. Then her phone rang. Sofia. Ruby answered instantly. Hey, sweetheart. No response. Sofia. Breathing. Then a whisper. Ruby, I'm here. I can't find Uncle Luca. He's probably downstairs. Are you in your room? Yes. Why do you have a phone? Emergency drawer. Of course there was an emergency drawer. What's wrong? Sofia whispered. Mr. Enzo is outside. Ruby sat upright. Outside your room, yes. Did he knock? No. Ruby stood. Sofia, lock your door. It doesn't lock. Ruby's blood went cold. Okay. Listen to me. Go into your bathroom and close that door. Why? Because we're playing a very boring game. I don't like boring games. I know. I'm sorry. Ruby grabbed her keys. Take the phone. Stay with me. She called Luca from another line while keeping Sofia connected. No answer. Again. No answer. Then Sofia whispered. Ruby. Yes. The camera went to sleep. Ruby stopped breathing. From the phone came the faint sound of Sofia's bedroom door opening. Ruby was already running for her car when Sofia whispered, Someone's in my room. Bathroom. Now. Ruby shoved her keys into the ignition with one hand and kept the phone pressed to her ear with the other. Close the door. Put something in front of it if you can. My stool. Perfect. Quietly. A soft scrape came through the line. Then, silence. Ruby called Luca again from the car display. No answer. She called Marco. This time someone picked up on the second ring. Santoro Security. Marco. It's Ruby. Sofia called me. Someone entered her bedroom and the camera went down. The voice on the other end changed instantly. Where is she? Bathroom. I think Enzo was outside her room. Do not come to the house. I'm already driving. Ruby, find Luca. The drive should have taken 20 minutes. Ruby made it in 12 and hated every second she saved. The front gate was closed when she arrived. 2 guards stood outside the booth. One, speaking urgently into a radio. Ruby lowered her window. Open it. Ms. Bennett. We are under internal lockdown. Sofia is upstairs. We know. Then open the gate. The guard hesitated. Ruby leaned across the passenger seat. If you make me climb it in this dress, I will become a security problem. The gate opened. Luca met her in the foyer. His shirt was untucked at one side. There was blood on his cuff that did not appear to be his. Ruby stopped. Sofia safe. Her knees nearly gave way. Luca caught her elbow. She's with Marco. What happened? Enzo entered her room during the camera outage. He says he was responding to a motion alert. There was no alert. She called me because he was standing outside. Luca's face hardened. I know. Why weren't you answering? My phone was taken during a security meeting. Taken. Someone triggered an emergency protocol requiring all devices to be surrendered before entering the command room. Ruby stared at him. Your own protocol? Yes. He looked furious with himself. Ruby followed him upstairs. Sofia sat wrapped in a blanket on the nursery sofa with Marco beside her. The moment she saw Ruby, she ran. Ruby caught her and held on until the child stopped shaking. You did exactly right, Ruby whispered. You went to the bathroom. You stayed quiet. You called for help. Sofia pressed her face against Ruby's shoulder. Mr. Enzo said he was checking the window. Ruby looked at Luca. Was he? The window was locked. No alarm. No sensor fault. Then why was he there? That is what I intend to find out. Enzo waited in the library with 2 guards. He looked offended rather than frightened. This is absurd, he said when Luca entered. I responded to an irregularity. There was no irregularity. The system indicated motion. Show me. The alert cleared. Show me the log. Enzo's mouth tightened. The camera outage corrupted it. Ruby stood near the door with Sofia's hand in hers. Convenient. Enzo looked at her. You should not be part of this conversation, Luca said. She stays. Enzo's gaze returned to him. Something passed across his face. Not surprise this time. Disappointment. Luca placed the duplicate master key on the table. You told me your issued key was in the safe. It was. And this one, I don't know. You have manufacturer authorization to duplicate them. So do you. I did not. Enzo's expression cooled. Then, perhaps, someone copied mine. His eyes moved toward Ruby again. Luca stepped between the line of sight without appearing to. Stop. Enzo went still. You do not imply she is responsible unless you have evidence. Ruby felt the words more sharply than she expected. Less than an hour ago, Luca had hesitated. Now the hesitation was gone. Enzo folded his hands behind his back. You are allowing attachment to interfere with judgment. Luca's voice became quiet. Careful. Your father would never have permitted an employee to disrupt household discipline this way. My father is dead. His principles are not. Some of them should be. The room went silent. Ruby looked at Luca. Enzo did too. That was the first real fracture. Luca ordered Enzo removed from household duty pending investigation. Enzo surrendered his access card, radio, and issued master key without protest, as the guards escorted him toward the service wing. He looked back at Luca. You think removing rules makes people free. It only makes them vulnerable. Luca did not answer. Once Sofia was asleep in a guest room under Marco's watch, Ruby and Luca returned to the kitchen where the story had begun. The burned skillet had been replaced. The framed rule still hung above the stove. Ruby stared at it while Luca poured 2 glasses of water. I need to tell you something. He stopped. Sofia said something this afternoon. About Enzo. Luca set the glass down. Ruby forced herself not to soften the truth. She overheard him telling someone that you need to be scared sometimes because scared people remember rules. Luca did not move. When before I started working here, she told me today. And you didn't tell me. No. The word sat between them. Why? Because she's 6. Because it was one sentence without context. Because I spent the morning telling you not to turn fear into certainty, and I didn't want to do exactly that with Enzo. You decided what information I needed. Ruby flinched. Yes. After criticizing me for doing the same thing to you. Yes. He looked away. Ruby could have defended herself. She could have explained that her reasoning had been careful, that she had intended to tell him once she understood more. All of it would have been true. None of it changed what she had done. I was wrong. Luca looked at her again. No yoke. No smile. Ruby continued. Not wrong to question the meaning. Wrong to keep it from you after you specifically asked me to tell you anything unusual. His anger did not disappear, but something in it changed. Thank you for saying that. That sounds ominously mature. His mouth almost moved. Ruby exhaled. Then Luca said, I was wrong too. She blinked. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that near a recording device? Do not ruin it. Trying. He leaned against the counter. When Enzo suggested you were involved, I considered it because I believed impartiality meant distrusting everyone equally. That sounds like you. It was lazy. Ruby's humor faded. I had evidence about your behavior. He continued. You protected Sofia at the school. You noticed the detector. You challenged the false schedule. You stayed after 9 because she was afraid. I treated all of that as irrelevant, the moment someone presented a theoretical possibility. Ruby looked at him. Why? Because trusting you would mean accepting that my judgment could become personal. And that violates a rule. Yes. Which one? His gaze held hers. The one about staff. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. Ruby became aware of the space between them, of Luca's sleeves rolled to his forearms, of the exhaustion in his face, of the fact that neither of them was pretending this conversation was only about security anymore. She looked up at the framed sign. You have too many rules. I'm becoming aware. Slowly, painfully. For one suspended second. Luca looked at her mouth. Ruby noticed. He noticed her noticing. Then Marco entered. The moment vanished. We have the independent systems technician, he said. You wanted someone outside Enzo's chain. Luca straightened. Bring him in. The technician was a woman named Priya Shah, who had installed security systems for 3 embassies and seemed unimpressed by Luca. The mansion, or the fact that half the people around her were armed. Ruby liked her immediately. Priya began with the kitchen detector. She removed the housing, photographed the wiring, then checked the gas range sensors. This was not just disconnected, she said. Luca moved closer. Explain. The smoke detector was manually isolated. That part you know. But the gas flame safety response was also altered. Ruby frowned. The what? If a burner produces irregular flame or excess gas, the system should shut the supply almost immediately. Someone increased the response delay. How much factory default is under 3 seconds? This was set to 28. Ruby stared at the stove. The fire replayed in her head. Butter. Flamme. The sudden surge that had seemed too large for such a small mistake. If I had turned the dial correctly, you probably would have had no issue. And if anyone made a small mistake, Priya looked at her. It would become a bigger one. Luca's face changed. Ruby whispered. The fire wasn't the accident. Priya shook her head. Your mistake was an accident. The conditions around it were not. That distinction landed hard. Someone had not known Ruby would cook. Someone had made the kitchen less safe and waited for normal human error to do the rest. Priya moved to the security cabinet near the pantry. The access history showed maintenance changes performed 7 weeks earlier under a master administrative profile. Whose profile? Luca asked. Marco answered before Priya could. Enzo's. Silence. Priya raised a hand. Credential attribution is not identity attribution. Someone could have used his login. Can you tell where local terminal? Which terminal? She checked. East garage. Ruby closed her eyes. The same garage where the duplicate key had been found. The same terminal connected to Sofia's altered schedule. Luca said, "Keep going." They did. For 3 hours. The camera outages had not been random. Each was created through maintenance bypass from one of 2 internal terminals. The fake transportation schedule had been entered from the East garage. The driver verification photograph had been replaced through a security administrator account. The gas delay and detector isolation had been configured during a maintenance window Enzo personally supervised. Still, every credential could theoretically have been stolen. Then Priya found something harder to explain. A hidden automation. Whenever the nursery camera entered bypass mode after 9 at night, the central system suppressed the outage alert for 4 minutes. Exactly 4. Ruby looked at Luca. Someone built the cameras to sleep. Priya nodded. Deliberately. Who created the automation? Priya traced the configuration history. The account name appeared on the screen. Marcelli, admin. Luca stared at it. No one spoke. Marco finally said, "We need to detain him." Luca nodded. Marco touched his radio. Static. He frowned. Then, every light in the kitchen went out. Emergency lamps came on 2 seconds later. Luca was already moving. Lock the house. Marco tried his radio again. Nothing. Priya looked at the control panel. Network's down. Ruby's stomach dropped. Where's Sofia guest room? North corridor. Luca was through the door before anyone answered. Ruby followed. Stay here. He snapped. No. Ruby. She trusts me. This is not a discussion. It became one when your security system went dark. Luca stopped. For a second, fear and instinct fought across his face. Then he nodded. Behind me. Ruby did not argue about that one. They reached the north corridor in less than a minute. Marco's guard was unconscious outside the guest room. Alive. Breathing. The door stood open. The bed was empty. Luca went completely still. Ruby's heart slammed against her ribs. Sofia. No answer. Luca touched the guard's neck, then looked at the open window. Ruby crossed to the bed. A folded piece of paper rested on the pillow. Not a ransom note. A printed page from Luca's household manual. Rule 3. During internal security failure. Minors are to be moved to the safe room by head of household security or designated officer. Someone had circled the sentence in black ink. Ruby looked at Luca. Enzo didn't take her out of the house. His eyes met hers. He used your rule. Luca ran. The safe room was beneath the west wing, behind a reinforced door, accessible through a private corridor. Ruby's key card could not open. When they reached it, Luca pressed his palm to the biometric panel. Access denied. Again, access denied. Marco arrived behind them. His credentials revoked. Luca said. Priya reached the panel. The lock hierarchy has been changed. Open it. I need the control server. Network is down. Ruby looked at the door. How long? Priya hesitated. If the override has been rewritten, 20 minutes. Maybe more. Luca struck the wall with his palm. Sofia is in there with him. Ruby stared at the rule printed beside the safe room entrance. Authorized personnel only. She remembered Sofia's words. Bad things, no doors. Then she remembered the house tour on her first day. The laundry corridor. The old service stairs. The dumbwaiter, Sofia, had tried to climb into before Ruby stopped her. Ruby turned. There's another way. Luca looked at her. The old service passage behind the linen room. Sofia showed me. She said it used to carry food to the west wing before the renovation. Marco frowned. It was sealed. From this side, nobody answered. Ruby was already moving. The linen room looked ordinary until she pulled away a shelving unit and found a narrow wooden panel. Luca helped wrench it open. Behind it was darkness and a shaft barely wide enough for one adult. Luca looked inside. "I'll go." Ruby looked at his shoulders. "You won't fit. I'll make it fit. That is not how architecture works." "Ruby." She grabbed a flashlight from Marco. "I fit." "No." Strong recommendation. "No." She looked at him. For once, neither joked. Luca's fear was naked now. Not controlling. Not disguised as policy. Simply fear. Ruby touched his wrist. "I can reach her." His jaw tightened. "I know." "Then let me." The words mattered. Let me. Not order me. Not stop me. Trust me. Luca closed his eyes for half a second. Then he handed her his flashlight. 3 minutes. If you don't answer, I tear the wall down. That seems expensive. Ruby. 3 minutes. She climbed into the passage. The space smelled of dust and old wood. Ruby moved sideways, shoulders scraping plaster, following a faint line of cold air. Behind her, Luca's voice came through the opening. "Talk to me. I'm crawling through your walls. Useful information. They need cleaning." "Ruby." "I'm fine." 20 feet in. The passage split. She froze. "Left or right?" Luca asked. Ruby remembered Sofia's tour. The dumbwaiter was near the old dining room. "West is left from where you entered." Ruby took the left passage. A minute later, she found a metal service hatch. Voices came through it. "Enzo, you see what happens when rules are ignored," Sofia answered. Small, but steady. "Ruby ignores rules." "Yes. She keeps me safe." Silence. Ruby's chest tightened. Enzo spoke again. "Your uncle has forgotten what this family requires. My uncle makes bad grilled cheese." Ruby nearly laughed, from pure relief. Sofia was alive. She pushed gently against the hatch. "Locked," Ruby whispered. "Luca, I'm here. I found them." Everything on the other end went silent. Sofia called. Enzo said sharply, "Who are you talking to?" Ruby kicked the hatch. Once. Pain shot up her leg. Again. The old latch cracked. On the third kick, the hatch flew inward. Ruby fell through into a storage alcove behind the safe room. Enzo turned. Sofia sat on a bench beside him. No weapon visible. Ruby stood between them as quickly as she could. Enzo looked almost sad. "You, disappointed. You should have left this house when you were given the chance. You should have fixed the smoke detector." His face hardened. Sofia ran toward Ruby. Enzo caught her arm. Ruby's fear became anger. "Let her go. I have never hurt that child. You put her in a fake kidnapping route to expose weaknesses. You changed the kitchen safety system to expose negligence. You shut down cameras to prove Luca had become dependent on technology instead of discipline." Ruby stared at him. "You created danger so you could be right about danger." Enzo's expression sharpened. "I kept this family alive before you knew its name. No, you made them afraid enough to need you." He pulled Sofia closer. Ruby took one step forward. "Don't. You think warmth makes a home safe? No. Rules do." Ruby looked at Sofia, then at Enzo. "Rules didn't get me into this room." A crash thundered from the corridor. The reinforced door shook. "Luca." Enzo looked toward it. Ruby moved. She grabbed Sofia and twisted away as Enzo reached for her. His hand caught Ruby's sleeve instead. Fabric tore. Ruby shoved Sofia behind the storage alcove. The safe room door crashed again. Enzo released Ruby and reached toward his waistband. Ruby froze. Then the door burst inward. Luca entered with Marco behind him. He saw Enzo's hand. He saw Ruby. He saw Sofia. Everything stopped. "Move away from them," Luca said. Enzo slowly lowered his hand. There was no gun, only another master key. Luca stared at it. Enzo gave a tired smile. You see, even now you needed the old ways. No, Luca said. His gaze moved to Ruby, one sleeve torn, standing in front of Sofia. I needed someone I trusted. Enzo's smile disappeared. Marco restrained him. Sofia ran to Luca. He dropped to his knees and held her so tightly, Ruby had to look away. For a moment. Nobody was a boss, employee, guard, suspect, or nanny. They were simply people in a room that had almost become a cage, because one man believed fear was the same thing as safety. Later, after Sofia had been checked by a doctor and fallen asleep in Luca's room, Ruby sat at the kitchen island with an ice pack against her bruised shin. The framed rule above the stove was crooked. Luca entered. He looked exhausted. Ruby raised the ice pack. Your walls attacked me. I'll have them disciplined. Finally, appropriate leadership. He stopped across from her. Enzo confessed enough to confirm Priya's findings. Ruby's smile faded. He says he never intended Sofia to be taken at the school. The fake driver was supposed to fail verification. Ruby stared at him. That driver reached for his jacket. I know. He lost control of his own test. Yes. The kitchen. He wanted small failures. A flare. An alarm delay. Something to justify stricter household control. And if I hadn't covered the pan, Luca's face hardened. He says he miscalculated. Ruby laughed without humor. Men like that always call consequences miscalculations. Luca sat beside her. Not oppose it. Beside. He created the camera bypasses, changed the transport schedule, duplicated the master key. He believed I was weakening the family by reducing the old security structure. Because you weren't scared enough. Yes. Ruby looked at her hands. I should have told you what Sofia said. Yes. She looked at him. He continued. And I should have built a house where one man could not become more powerful than the people he claimed to protect. Ruby leaned back. That sounds expensive. It will be. Good. Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable. Luca looked at the rule above the stove. Then he stood, reached up, and removed it from the wall. Ruby watched. What are you doing? Revising policy. That one was technically reasonable. It started a fire. I started a fire. His eyes met hers. No, you made a mistake. The distinction echoed Priya's words. Ruby swallowed. Luca set the framed rule on the counter. People make mistakes. A safe house should survive them. For once, Ruby had no joke ready. He moved closer. Ruby. Yes, I almost lost Sofia tonight. I know. And you went through a wall to reach her. Technically, a service passage. Do not correct me while I'm trying to say something. She pressed her lips together. His gaze dropped to them. The air changed. Again. This time Marco did not enter. No alarm sounded. No camera clicked off. Luca lifted one hand and stopped before touching her face. Ruby looked at his hand, then at him. Is there a rule about this? Yes. Of course there is. I do not become involved with employees. Ruby's heartbeat accelerated. That seems unusually specific. It became necessary. Before or after I arrived? His mouth almost curved. Before. Then technically I haven't caused every problem in this house. Only most. Ruby smiled. Luca's thumb hovered near her cheek. He did not touch her. Not without permission. Ruby noticed that too. Then Sofia screamed upstairs. Both of them moved instantly. The moment shattered. They found Sofia sitting upright in Luca's bed, crying from a nightmare. Ruby climbed onto one side. Luca sat on the other. Sofia reached for both of them. Nobody mentioned the almost kiss. Nobody needed to. At 2:14 in the morning, Sofia finally slept again with one hand wrapped around Ruby's fingers and the other around Luca's. Ruby looked across the child at him. The threat is over. Luca was quiet. Enzo is contained. His access is gone. Everyone connected to his security changes is being reviewed. That wasn't my question. His eyes met hers. No, he said. Not completely. Ruby waited. He built the system for years. I don't know yet what else he changed. There it was. The setup for whatever remained. Not a new conspiracy. The consequences of the one already inside the house. Luca looked down at Sofia. Tomorrow, I replace every protocol he controlled. Ruby whispered. With more rules, he looked at her. No. That surprised her more than anything else that night. With people I trust. Ruby held his gaze. Then Luca added, starting with you. Before she could answer, his phone vibrated on the bedside table. A security alert. He read it. His face changed. Ruby's stomach tightened. What? Luca turned the screen toward her. Safe room. Emergency protocol. Secondary lockdown active. Ruby frowned. But Enzo is detained. Yes. Then who activated it? Luca looked toward the dark hallway. I don't think anyone did. A second alert appeared. West Wing fire suppression, armed. Then a third. Nursery doors. Automatic seal and 0500. Ruby looked at Sofia sleeping between them. Enzo had been removed. His rules had not. And somewhere inside the house, the system he built had begun executing one final protocol on its own. 5 minutes was a generous amount of time, until the door of a 6-year-old's bedroom was scheduled to seal. Luca was out of bed before the countdown reached 0447. Ruby scooped Sofia into her arms, blanket and all. The child woke immediately. What happened? The house is being dramatic, Ruby said. Already moving. Again. Exactly. Luca reached the bedroom door and held it open, while Ruby carried Sofia into the corridor. Red emergency lights had replaced the soft night lamps. Somewhere inside the walls, mechanical locks began engaging one after another with heavy metallic clicks. Luca checked his phone. West Wing is entering containment. Ruby looked at the countdown. Can you stop it? Not from here. Priya. On her way to the control room, Sofia wrapped both arms around Ruby's neck. Is Mr. Enzo back? Luca's expression changed. No. He crouched in front of her. He cannot reach you. Then why is the house mad? Ruby looked at Luca. He looked at the red lights. Because I let one man teach it too many bad habits. The secondary lockdown had been designed years earlier for an armed attack on the property. Enzo had modified it so extensively that removing his access had triggered a fail-safe. In the system's logic, the sudden revocation of the head of security's credentials meant the estate itself might be compromised. Doors sealed. Fire suppression armed. Exterior gates locked. The safe room isolated. Worst of all, the protocol divided the house into zones and attempted to move registered family members toward designated containment rooms. Sofia's bedroom was still classified as a protected minor zone. If she had been asleep there alone, the door would have sealed for 40 minutes. Ruby stared at Luca. 40. Yes. With no adult inside, there was supposed to be a guard. The guard Enzo's system just locked outside. Luca's jaw tightened. Yes. Ruby adjusted Sofia on her hip. I would like to formally criticize the manual. You may burn it. Careful. I have experience. Despite everything. Sofia laughed. That sound decided something in Luca. Marco, he said into the radio. New priority. Nobody follows automated movement instructions. Human confirmation only. Open every occupied room manually. If a rule conflicts with a person standing in front of you, choose the person. Ruby looked at him. That sounded almost healthy. Do not make me regret it. Priya's voice came through the radio. Luca, control room is inaccessible. West fire doors dropped. I can reach the server through the maintenance corridor, but the suppression system is beginning a pressure cycle. Ruby frowned. What does that mean? Luca answered. It thinks there may be a fire. In the west wing? Yes. Is there? No. Ruby looked toward the ceiling. Of course. The story had begun with a real fire nobody detected. It was ending with a fire system inventing one. Luca handed Sofia to Marco when the guard reached them. Sofia immediately reached back toward Ruby. You're coming. Ruby touched her cheek. I'm right behind you. Luca shook his head. No. Marco takes Sofia to the courtyard. You go with her. Ruby looked at him. And you. Control room. The corridor is sealed. I know another route. Does it involve crawling through a wall? Unfortunately. No? Then mine is better. Luca almost smiled. Ruby, I'm listening. He looked at Sofia, then back at her. Go with her. Ruby understood the difference. Not an order, because he believed he owned the decision. A request because he needed to know Sofia was with the person she trusted most. Ruby nodded. Okay. Luca's shoulders eased. Then, the fire alarm began. This time it worked. It worked everywhere. Sofia covered her ears. White suppression mist blasted into the west corridor behind them. A fire door slammed down, separating Luca from Ruby, Sofia, and Marco. Luca. He was on the other side of reinforced glass. I'm fine. Go. Ruby hated it. She went. The route to the courtyard should have taken 2 minutes. The lockdown turned it into a maze. 2 corridors were sealed. A stairwell had entered security hold. Marco led them toward the service hall, only to find another door locked. Sofia whispered. The laundry stairs. Ruby looked at her. What? The secret stairs. The passage from the night before. Ruby almost laughed. Of course. They reached the linen room and opened the old service panel. Marco stared into the narrow passage. You cannot be serious. Ruby handed him Sofia's emergency backpack. I'm always serious when architecture becomes relevant. Sofia climbed in first this time, delighted enough by the forbidden route that fear temporarily lost its grip. Ruby followed. Marco, who was considerably wider than either of them, muttered several things about employment decisions while forcing himself sideways through the opening. Halfway down the passage, the house shook. Not an explosion, a pressure release. Then Luca's voice came through Ruby's phone. Where are you? In your walls. Pause. Again, Sofia's idea. Of course it was. Where are you? Control room access corridor. Are you safe? Yes. Ruby heard something metallic crash behind his voice. You're lying. I'm selectively describing. That is lying in a suit. Sofia whispered. Tell him not to die. Ruby's throat tightened. You heard your niece. Luca's voice softened. I heard her. They emerged near the old dining room and reached the courtyard 3 minutes later. Guards were already gathering staff outside. Ruby counted faces without meaning to. Sofia clung to her hand. Marco said, Stay here. Ruby looked toward the west wing windows. Red lights flashed behind the glass. Luca's still inside. Priya is with him. That was not my observation. Marco gave her a look. Ruby looked at Sofia. That stopped her. She crouched. Hey, I need to help your uncle. Sofia's fingers tightened around hers. Ruby immediately reconsidered. No heroic gesture was worth making the child feel abandoned again. Then Sofia surprised her. Go. Ruby blinked. You'll stay with Marco. Sofia nodded. Promise, yes. Ruby kissed her forehead. I'll come back. Sofia looked very serious. That's a rule. Ruby smiled. That one I'll keep. She ran back inside. The west corridor was filled with suppression mist. Ruby covered her mouth and followed the emergency lights until she reached the control room access hall. Priya was kneeling beside an open panel. Luca stood at the sealed door with a crowbar. He saw Ruby. His expression became murderous. What are you doing here? Keeping a rule. What rule? I told Sofia I'd come back. That does not explain why you came toward danger first. She's safe with Marco. Luca stared at her. Ruby pointed at the panel. Can we argue after the house stops trying to parent everyone? Priya said. Please. Luca looked like a man discovering democracy was personally inconvenient. He lowered the crowbar. Priya had isolated the secondary lockdown. But the system would not release because Enzo had created a final authentication condition. The head of household and head of security were supposed to confirm together. Enzo's credentials were revoked, leaving the protocol in an endless loop. So restore his credentials long enough to shut it down, Ruby said. Luca shook his head. That gives him access. He's detained to a system he knows better than anyone. Priya nodded. Too risky. Ruby looked at the screen. 2 authorization boxes. Head of household. Head of security. Can you replace the second role? Not while lockdown is active. Can you make the system think someone else already had it? Priya looked at her. Luca looked at Priya. Priya slowly smiled. That is offensively simple. Ruby smiled back. My specialty. Priya pulled up the legacy personnel database. Enzo had designed the protocol years earlier, when Luca's father still owned the estate. The backup role had never been deleted. Elena Santoro. Family. Security override. Luca went still. Ruby's smile disappeared. Your sister? Yes. Priya looked at him. Her profile is inactive, but the credential certificate is still stored locally. I can transfer the authorization class to a new user. Luca stared at the name. For years he had responded to Elena's death by tightening every rule around her daughter. Now the forgotten piece of Elena's access could dismantle the system built from that fear. Do it, he said. Priya opened a new user field. Name Luca looked at Ruby. She immediately shook her head. No. His eyebrows lifted. I'm not becoming head of security because I know how to make grilled cheese. You crawled through a wall during an internal breach. Strong resume line. Still no. Priya hid a smile. Luca said, Marco. Ruby nodded. Marco. Priya transferred the authorization. Luca placed his palm on the scanner. Marco confirmed remotely from the courtyard. The system hesitated. Then the red screen changed. Secondary lockdown terminated. Every door in the corridor released at once. Silence followed. No alarm. No locks. No automated voice telling anyone where to stand. Just a house. Ruby exhaled. Luca leaned both hands against the console. For a moment. He looked exhausted enough to collapse. Ruby moved beside him. You okay? No. She appreciated the answer. Good. He looked at her. I mean, not good. Accurate. His mouth moved. Then Priya cleared her throat. I'm going to pretend neither of you exists for 5 minutes while I permanently delete every automated protocol Enzo created. Ruby nodded solemnly. Hero. They returned to the courtyard together. Sofia ran to them. Luca caught her first. Ruby joined them a second later because Sofia grabbed her sleeve and pulled. The 3 of them stood in the middle of the courtyard while dawn began turning the sky gray. No one commented on how natural it felt. Enzo was removed from the property before sunrise. Luca did not meet him alone. That surprised everyone except Ruby. The conversation happened in the library with Marco, legal counsel, and 2 investigators present. Ruby did not attend. She did not need to. Later, Luca told her that Enzo had expected privacy. He said this was family business. Luca explained, and I told him Sofia is family. Protecting her means she never has to live under the rules he created again. Ruby smiled. What did he say? That I had become soft. And have you, Luca, considered it? I hope so. That answer stayed with her. Over the following weeks, the Santoro house changed in ways both large and ridiculous. The 27-page household manual became 8 pages. Then 6, after Ruby found 3 separate rules governing umbrellas. Staff could speak at meals. Sofia's schedule gained blank spaces labeled choice. Cameras were audited by an outside company. No single person controlled security credentials. Marco became head of household security and immediately removed the rule requiring newspapers to be folded business section first because, in his words, I have actual threats to manage. Ruby framed that sentence. The sign above the stove never returned. Ruby did. Technically, her temporary contract ended 3 weeks after the lockdown. The agency sent a renewal form. Ruby left it unsigned for 2 days. Not because she wanted to leave, because she needed to know why she was staying. Sofia made the answer complicated. Luca made it worse. He had become infuriatingly respectful. He asked before changing Ruby's hours, asked before sending a car, asked whether she wanted security when she went home late, asked whether she preferred dinner with them or time alone. The man had discovered consent and turned it into project management. Ruby hated how much she liked it. On the final evening of her original contract, she found Luca in the kitchen. Not the formal dining room, not his office. The kitchen. He was standing over a skillet. Smoke curled toward the ceiling. Ruby stopped. Oh no. Luca turned. Do not. You're cooking. Yes. Voluntarily. Yes. Should I evacuate Sofia? She is with Marco. Excellent judgment. Ruby approached the stove. What is that lemon pasta? Her teasing disappeared. Luca looked uncomfortable. That made it worse. Elena's recipe. My memory of it. Which means, probably, wrong. Ruby looked into the pan. You burned the garlic. She always did. Toast. His eyes met hers. Right. Ruby smiled. The smoke detector blinked overhead. Then it chirped. Once. Loudly. Both of them looked up. Ruby laughed. Luca switched off the burner. At least that works. Romance is alive. He stared at her. Ruby's laughter faded. What? Luca reached into his pocket and removed a folded piece of cream paper. Ruby groaned. No. He held it out. If that is another rule list, I am setting something on fire. Read it. She unfolded the paper. There was one line. Ask me before you leave. Ruby read it twice, then looked at him. That's not a rule. Good. Her heartbeat changed. Luca stood very still. I know your contract ends tonight. Yes. I know staying for Sofia and staying for me are not the same decision. Ruby swallowed. No, I will not confuse them. The kitchen became quiet. I want you here, he said, but I do not want you here because you think Sofia needs you. Because the agency expects it. Because I can protect you. Or because leaving would be difficult. Ruby looked at the paper. What do you want me to stay for? His gaze held hers. Because you choose us. Us. Not me. Not the job. Us. Ruby's eyes stung unexpectedly. She covered it with humor. That is manipulative. You included a 6-year-old. I learned from professionals. She laughed softly. Then, Luca stepped closer. Not touching. Waiting. Ruby looked at him. The rule about employees gone. You deleted it, I deleted most of them. That one, specifically. Yes. Suspicious timing. Ruby. She smiled. "The first time you almost kissed me." Sofia screamed. "I remember. Do we have contingency planning? Marco has strict instructions. For security. To keep Sofia downstairs for 10 minutes unless the house is actually on fire." Ruby laughed. Then she looked at the stove. "Technically, it is not on fire. Yet." Luca lifted a hand. Stopped. Just as he had before. Ruby stepped into it. His palm settled against her cheek. Warm. Careful. Nothing about Luca Santoro was careless. That was why the gentleness mattered. "May I kiss you?" he asked. Ruby looked at the man who once believed rules were safer than trust. Then at the paper in her hand. That sounded like a request. "I'm learning." Slowly. "Ruby." "Yes." He kissed her. No alarm interrupted. No camera died. No door locked. Ruby's fingers curled into his shirt, and Luca drew her closer only after she did. The kiss was warm and restrained for approximately 3 seconds before months of tension, or, more accurately, several extremely eventful weeks made restraint unrealistic. When they separated, Ruby looked up at him. "You taste like burned garlic." Luca closed his eyes. She laughed against his chest. From the doorway came a small voice. Did 10 minutes happen? They jumped apart. Sofia stood with Marco behind her. Marco checked his watch. 6. Luca looked at him. "You had one instruction." Marco shrugged. "She outranks me emotionally." Sofia looked at Ruby. "Are you staying?" Ruby looked at Luca. He did not answer for her. That was the answer. Ruby crouched. "Yes." Sofia threw her arms around her. Forever, Ruby glanced at Luca. "Let's not give your uncle ideas about permanent contracts." "I heard that. You were meant to." Sofia pulled Luca into the hug. He resisted for half a second, then stopped resisting. Months later, the Santoro house was still secure. It simply no longer felt like a fortress pretending to be a home. Sofia took piano lessons outside the property again. Ruby went with her sometimes. Marco's team handled security without turning every outing into a military operation. And Luca learned that asking where they were going was different from deciding whether they were allowed to go. Ruby remained Sofia's nanny for another year. After that, she stopped being an employee. Not because Luca asked her to give up her work, because Ruby opened a childcare consultancy of her own, helping families design routines that protected children without treating them like schedules with legs. Luca invested exactly $0 because Ruby told him she wanted to build it herself. He did. However, buy her a coffee machine for the office. He asked first. Enzo's case moved through courts and internal investigations. The damage he had created took longer to repair than the systems. Luca never pretended otherwise. Trust returned slowly, through transparent decisions, shared authority, and the uncomfortable practice of admitting when he was afraid. The kitchen became the center of the house. That might have been Ruby's favorite victory. Staff ate there. Sofia did homework at the island. Luca held meetings there when Ruby informed him his office made everyone look guilty. Lemon pasta became a monthly ritual. Sometimes Ruby cooked it. Sometimes Luca did. He always burned the garlic. One rainy evening, nearly 2 years after Ruby first arrived, Sofia sat at the island drawing while Ruby stood at the stove. Luca came in, loosened his tie, and kissed Ruby's temple. Sofia groaned. "Rules." Ruby turned. "What rules? No kissing when I'm doing homework." Luca looked at Ruby. Ruby looked at Luca. Then both looked at Sofia. Luca said, "Who made that rule?" "I did." Ruby considered it. "Is it reasonable?" "Yes." "Does it protect anyone?" "My eyes." Luca nodded solemnly. "Compelling." Ruby pointed the wooden spoon at him. "Do not encourage authoritarianism." Sofia giggled. Luca moved beside Ruby. On the wall above the stove hung a new framed sign. Not a household rule. A sentence Ruby had written after the old one came down. Rules can keep danger out. They cannot teach a house how to become a home. Luca had pretended to hate it. Then he had paid someone to frame it. Ruby stirred the sauce. Garlic, not burned. Disappointing. You have terrible standards. I hired you. You did not hire me. My house did. Ruby looked at him. He smiled. More easily now. That was still her favorite rule he had broken. The one nobody had ever written down. Luca Santoro had spent years believing love meant preventing every possible danger. Ruby taught him something messier. You could not make life safe enough to guarantee nobody would leave. You could only make a home where people were free enough to choose to stay.